welcome. I'm Cynthia Corsetti, executive coach, author, and speaker based in Sewickley, Pennsylvania. With years of experience in guiding leaders to realize their full potential, I've embarked on a new journey to bring those insights to a wider audience. Care to Lead, a podcast dedicated to diving deep into the world of leadership. In each 30-minute episode, I sit down with inspiring individuals from diverse backgrounds to explore pivotal moments in their leadership journeys, the challenges they face in today's ever-evolving business landscape, and the legacy they aspire to leave behind. Together, we uncover valuable lessons and insights that can empower each one of us to lead with purpose, compassion, and resilience. So whether you're a seasoned leader or just starting your journey, join me as we discover what it truly means to care to lead. Hello and welcome to the Care to Lead podcast, where today we're thrilled to have Ankoor Dasguupta. He's a beacon in the realm of digital marketing and empathy-led leadership. Ankoor is the vice president of marketing at Shisham Digital, and he brings with him a wealth of experience in brand strategy and digital marketing. Known for his unique perspective on incorporating empathy into leadership, Ankoor has been instrumental in driving transformative strategies that resonate on a human level in the digital space. His insights on empathy as a core component of leadership have been enlightening for many, and he's been shaping modern leaders on how they can connect more authentically with their teams and customers. Today, we're going to explore the depths of his philosophy and experiences, uncovering insights that are sure to inspire our listeners. Ankoor, welcome, welcome, welcome. Did I miss anything in your intro that you'd like to share?
Not at all, Cynthia. Thank you so much for making time for this discussion. I'm privileged and honored both. And I'm sure it's going to be an interesting chat. And we can do this. Let's start.
So let's just start, just getting right down to the nitty gritty. What do you see? Why do you see empathy as being a very significant importance in leadership?
All right. So it's a very valid question, Cynthia. My perspective is I'll boil down to certain facts, my observations primarily, and my experiences. Mm-hmm. We talk a lot about empathy. 20 years back, empathy was always there. I wouldn't say empathy was not there. There had been certain organizations that practice empathy. And empathy is surrounded by, it's not a standalone word, according to me. It's surrounded by multiple concepts like understanding people, understanding how people operate, understanding the pulse of the people, understanding that people before business is a very important thing to, as a priority. Mm-hmm. So coming from having worked with multiple organizations, be it large-sized, be it startups, be it mid-sized organizations, I've realized that every organization has different methods to operate, different perspectives to businesses, different priorities in businesses. Certain businesses would just onboard people and it would not matter to them that what kind of people are working or what are the kind of work they're doing, how to grow people, how to listen to people more effectively, how to have more feedback-driven meetings where there's more outcomes rather than just having a meeting. And after the first meeting, in the second meeting, we all observe that we're back to square one, right? There are multiple nuances when we talk about empathy. Because the beauty of empathy is it is applicable to multiple facets of businesses and human beings. So I would say that we talk a lot about it. My observation is that. But however, as industries and organizations, we don't invest that quality time in actually putting our belief into action. Let me put it that way. As much action that may be required, that action is not, I don't see it coming through in that high impact all across industries as it should be. So, diversity and inclusion could be one point. For example, as a concept, we see a lot of organizations talking about it, but when it comes to practice, many organizations are not able to even think through the fine line between inclusion and diversity and what all it entails. Similarly, in the perspective of empathy, I would say it starts with a very simple thing, which is effective listening. And here, even the senior leaders I see missing out on a lot of things in terms of investing time in effective listening. Because people don't have time. That's the reality.
Can you share a specific instance where empathetic leadership and maybe even more specifically, good listening skills directly impacted a business outcome at your organization?
I would say I would love to talk about my past experiences in the past few years. I believe being leaders, it's a two-pronged sword, right? It's a double-edged sword. You got to take decisions, and you got to take decisions very fast, right? Even leaders have pressures. So uh, not even one instance. I mean, similar kind of instances have happened where when we practiced listening to a certain perspective. Let me give you a very specific example. Let's say we got to take a decision on onboarding a new product, right? This is one example for the organization. It involves the decision making of, say, a CFO, a chief digital officer, a CDO, and say the chief marketing officer, and of course the CEO. But even before the CEO, these three people have to convene together and listen to each other, right? That why is this product important? How will it impact our business? Will we be able to utilize optimally 100% of the product? If you're onboarding, say, a complete suite, will we be able to utilize optimally? Is that actually for short term or long term? So there are multiple questions around it. When we apply empathy to these discussions, number one, what happens is, and I have been in certain similar situations where we have applied empathy and we have not, consciously or not consciously. So when we take a decisions very fast, which does not involve empathy in terms of effective listening to another person's perspective, because the CFO will have a different mindset entirely. He will have a certain grid in his mind to take a decision. The CMO will have a certain framework in his mind to take a decision, right? So once we were in planning to onboard a very particularly important product for our marketing purposes, and that decision came out beautifully because we invested in exactly 3 meetings. So the first, and we decided, so in 3 meetings, we are going to close it like in the span of, say, 3 weeks before the close of this particular month. We need to close this discussion, and we need to have a consensus. So in order to arrive at a consensus, what we did was we asked all the 3 people that bring in your points, note it down so that we can have a very structured discussion. We did that. And in a set of 3 meetings, we were able to hear each other out very calmly, put across our points, show the pros and cons. And of course, the second meeting was the most difficult to get through because after the first meeting, we all had more thoughts to share that, around challenges and all. But when we did that, I think the decision making for the business became easier when we were listening each other out. The second quick example was when I had to take a hard call for a person in our organization. It was a difficult situation because primarily the onboarding was not right. I mean, it happened in such a way that at times we got on board very fast. The interviews are very mechanical. We don't invest that much time to understand the candidate, his or her skill sets, his or her aspirations. Because one of the questions I always ask is, what is your aspiration? What makes you happy? What are your leisure pursuits? What do you want to be doing? I mean, because certain skills can be acquired in work, but the behavioral attributes of the person are very important to understand. But at certain points, the pressure is so high that we just got to onboard somebody, right? Mm-hmm. So we did onboard a person whose fitment was not right, and I had to, do that conversation, which we usually try and avoid doing that. It was very difficult, and we spent about a little bit more than an hour during that discussion. But I had jotted down certain points in my mind as to how to carry forward the discussion. And believe me, Cynthia, all I was doing during that conversation, I just triggered off certain points which highlighted that person's core strengths. And then I told that person that how the fitment somehow is not matching up and how we have also screwed up in a certain way. because it is important to be transparent at the end of it, right? So that really helped. And after that, about 35 to 40 minutes, I was doing nothing. I was just listening. So my listening enabled that person to, understand that, all right, somebody is listening, and to vent out in a certain way. And we arrived at a very, amicable decision.
Ankoor,
So
what tips would you offer someone for being a better listener? Like a new leader, for example. How could that new leader become a better, more empathetic listener?
I would say, Cynthia, what has worked for me is, since I wouldn't say since the beginning, but since the past, say, 12 to 11 years, I've learned one thing. During the initial years, I was very kind of aggressive rather than assertive. So I was more keen on talking and answering rather than listening. I was thinking that what to answer, what to answer. So I have learned that leaders, be it senior execs or one level down, it's very important to first, when they join somewhere, it is important to understand people in totality and not only their direct reports. For example, my span of control at a point of time was 80 people. My first month's KRA to myself was talk to all the 80 people. It's a difficult task, but when we do that, we invest time in understanding the pulse of certain people. Where are the weak links? Who does what? Um, who have a listening ear? Who understands particular things better? So this exercise has really helped me when I do that within the first 20 days to 30 days. It really helps me to have conversations at all levels better and gives me a perspective to talk with data and with my experiences about with talking to other people, lower in the levels. So I believe before even starting to listen, it's important to talk to anybody and everybody within that organization. That's how.
How has this influenced employee engagement and retention within your teams?
Did you say retention?
Engagement and retention.
Engagement and retention. All right. So beautiful question, Cynthia. Thank you for asking this. So when people understand that there is somebody who is interested in speaking with you at a top level. So I'll give you this example, a small, anecdote. In one of our organizations, I was given a very plush cabin and to sit, and I was told by my then boss that, Ankur, you know what? You got to only talk to your direct reportees. Why are you spending so much time? And he observed me for the first 10 days. It was like, this guy talks to, everybody. They told me, Ankur, save on your time. Don't talk to so many people. You just talk to your 7 direct reports. I kind of politely declined. I said, all right, I have my style of working. The work that needs to be done will be done, but I need to do this exercise, because when people know that there is somebody, and people actually walked up to me and told me that uh, we have never met a person like you who comes and talk to us, who makes us feel important. I mean, 3 levels down, right? So when that trust builds up, it's entirely about trust, making somebody feel that I'm there for you. I mean, and even leaders can do that, but leaders refrain from doing that because they think very mechanically in a shell that, all right, I'm going to talk to my 2 direct reports and that's it. That's the information I'm going to have. But initial that 1 month or 2 months, if we invest in people, I think that builds that trust and efficiency, and that in turn helps and build retention gradually. Mm-hmm. Because that we can percolate down our team that practice of talking to people and not working in silos.
Very much. I love that. But can you tell me then how you explain to leaders how to balance between empathy and decisiveness, especially when there's critical business decisions that need to happen?
Great question, Cynthia. It's difficult. I won't say it's easy. It's very difficult when it comes to taking a business call, and there are people involved at the end of the day. It comes with conscious practice, I would say. Empathy is not a thing that suddenly we blink around and, oh, all right, today I have empathy. I mean, it does not work that way. We all know empathy is something, and posting on social media, hey, see, we are like this, we are very empathy driven, we are inclusive and diverse. It does not make a difference. It's absolutely okay to post, but we need to post on social media and display that when we're actually believing in that. Now, coming back to your question, I honestly don't have a specific answer to this because I don't think there is a very channelized way which can say, hey, if you do this A, B, C, then it can be done. But I believe one of the good hacks to it is doing a lot of employee-driven activities to bring in thoughts of employees, actual employees into the picture rather than only leadership decisions. Because I have seen one exercise that has worked for me. When we say bring in creative people or bring in data people, the left brain and the right brain, what I've seen that even the data people are creative people. If you bring them to creative discussions, they have certain ideas which are mind blowing. I've like experienced that firsthand. So I would say that there may not be any one way, but in engaging the people in certain conversations could be a channel or a catalyst to for leaders to bring that decision to life and choosing having a balance between empathy and decisiveness. If I
And
would have answered your question in some way.
how does this transfer from getting echo? How does this transfer between internal clients and like external brand strategy for your organization? How does empathy and engagement kind of cross that bridge?
Look, I feel that this thing is all about frequency and vibration because what we do internally reflects, it's an inside out approach in this case. What we do internally reflects with our clients, with our businesses. And businesses are formed entirely, I would say, if not 100%, 90%, it's on trust. And businesses are retained, like employees, like our people, businesses are also retained on trust, essentially. There are multiple partners with which clients can do businesses, right? But at the end of the day, if that particular business is doing a business with me, there is some element, a bond that is formed while we are pitching. For example, if I'm doing a pitch, what I've realized that transparency in pitching really helps. And when we are doing particularly pitches to clients in terms of strategy or brand strategy, I realized that what our practices are internally as an organization, it is actually not hidden. People get to know about it in some way because people talk, people are aware. Today we have social media. Today we have people moving on from one organization to other. So the organizational culture is building is very important in the long run. So for example, we write these values in the walls: integrity, energy, or respect. When we ask these values to our people, how many of those people actually understand the meaning? I mean, of those, like this exercise, okay, tell me today, everybody, what are our 6 values? And people took time. Some people were not aware of the like 1 or 2 values. So these are the, I would say, nuances forming a bridge between our external partners and within ourselves, that what we project and what we practice internally consistently really would matter, getting more businesses on board and building our thought process better as leaders.
How do you think that this whole role of empathy and leadership has evolved with the way the workflow has changed, like since COVID? We're in more of a digital age. We have remote teams, virtual interactions. How do we maintain empathy through that?
Great question, Cynthia. When I was working in an organization, I had moved cities. So when I changed my city with my wife was not happy. She was like, "All right, we are moving cities. It's a pain moving cities and all." And then before we even knew it, within 3 months of my moving to that city, and the pandemic hit. And we were like, "Wow, in a different city, pandemic. I mean, it's like insane." What we got to know that when it was disclosed that, all right, everybody start working from your home, we did not have that trust instantly. We were like, will our people work? Will our people will be able to work? How do we ensure people are actually working? How do we do pitches? How do we win pitches? I mean, it was a difficult task to build that trust within us. But I realized that within the first probably 15 to 20 days was a challenge because we were probably overthinking. And that's a big problem within us. So when we stopped overthinking and start working, we realized that people are actually working at their best uh, when they were not being monitored per se in office. So I believe gradually a lot of practices during the pandemic that we followed helped us to become better version of ourselves. Now we realize that importance is more to get the work done. So if a person is working remotely, or if a person is coming to office, say 2 or 3 days a week, it depends what the organization wants to practice, even after COVID, right? It's a choice that we make. But at the end of the day, if the work is not impacted, it's absolutely fine.
How has your own personal understanding and philosophy of leadership, how has that evolved over the years, especially since COVID?
It's evolved quite a lot, Cynthia. I mean, I would say that there have been the so-called atomic habits or atomic things that have shaped up within myself. Um, More nuanced version of it is how we understand people, because everything boils down to people, as I was saying, and leadership is more or less a state of the mind. If somebody asked me, Ankur, somebody asked me that recently, Cynthia, that do you think everybody is a leader? Everybody can be a leader? I said, I don't really think so. The job of a leader is primarily to create more leaders. And that's a very difficult task, not to create followers, right? If you are able to create more leaders and have a succession plan, then you're probably doing something right. And it's a very difficult task. Not why I'm saying this, that not everybody is a leader, but capable of becoming a leader, because those practices not everybody can do. And that practice starts with discipline. That practice starts with continuous improvement within oneself. Because if I'm not able to reflect what the other, how to understand the other person's perspective, then it becomes very difficult. So I would say over a period of time, I have learned to know when to play on back foot and when to play on front foot. I mean, if I got to term it in a very layman's word, because initially I was very, as I said, quite aggressive and fast decision maker. But gradually I realized that it is important to take a step back if need be, sleep it over, take your time, think through it, and then decide. Because when we take a decision, there is a business involved, dollars involved, people involved. So it is not only about being at a position and taking a decision.
So let's kind of turn a little bit and talk a little about storytelling as a leadership tactic and how storytelling could be used to increase empathy for leaders in a leader's skill set.
Again, Cynthia, this question is very close to my heart. When I started off my career with GE, I realized there was this one person, perhaps a super boss. He used to always come in the room and he used to always make us smile. The way he was charismatic. He used to delight us. He never used to ask us that, what are you working on? What are you doing? He used to just pump us up, and leave. I mean, 10 minutes or 15 minutes of speech, and we were like craving for more. Wow. What did he just do? He just created some magic within us. And we were roaring to go, for more. So I would say that it is quite important aspect as such. I mean, the word that you used was what in your question? Sorry, I kind of
storytelling.
Yeah. So he was a great storyteller because he used to tell stories from his personal experiences in that 10 or 15 minutes discussion, right? Mm-hmm. So when I started this habit, when I started, leading teams and all, this is a very magical thing, Cynthia. When somebody tells you about their personal life, like if I share a small anecdote about what my grandfather taught me, what my immediate family members taught me, what my past, leaders taught me, and what were my failures. When we talk about our failures, it becomes a part of very genuine storytelling. So I've started talking a lot about my failures as well, because those failures has made me learn. So I have seen not many leaders, and this is very correlated to empathy, talk about their failures. it is very important to talk about their failures. Then people feel that it's okay to fail, right? So storytelling becomes very important part of building trust, again, creating empathy, because then people listen to you deeply when you talk to them in a storytelling form. And the stories need to be very genuine. Storytelling does not mean necessarily creating a story. Storytelling essentially for me is sharing something which is from my life, which is from my experience. Need not necessarily be right or wrong, but I say, hey, this happened with me and I learned something from this. I don't know, would you want to share something? And I recently did this with my team, and they were like, all raring to go and share their side of the stories. It builds communication, it builds cohesiveness. So it's
So
very important in the long run.
you mentioned as you were answering that question that you think it's important for leaders to share stories about past failures. Is there a story you'd like to share with our listeners of a failure that you've had and you've learned from and it's helped you become a more empathetic leader?
Oh, yes, there are quite a few. But I'll share one in a nutshell. So there was a mistake I did, wrong decision which led to uh, loss of money within the organization. Let me put it that way. It was my call and I took the responsibility. So I wouldn't dive into it. I wouldn't talk about it much because it was slightly confidential in nature. But I was supposed to take a decision and I did not take the right. Let's put it that way. I did not take the right decision.
Mm-hmm.
It's like unarming a bomb. You cut the wire and I cut the wrong wire, and it went haywire. It led to quite some loss. Uh, I owned it up and I said that I made a mistake and it was a wrong decision. But when it happened, people realized that it was not only me, there were other people involved, but I owned it up. So it was something I learned over a period of time, that when the success is yours, give it to somebody else, your team. When there is failure, take it on yourself. It becomes
Mm-hmm.
much easier. So this is one of my failures, and there are multiple examples where I took a wrong decision, and it not necessarily led to loss of revenue, but impacted a person in some way. Um, Led to a bad, not the most appropriate onboarding of a person. Um, yeah, I mean, things like these have happened in the past, and I feel that I also feel grateful because I have learned a lot from these experiences, because how, when and how to take a step back and think. Then now I realize that I could have taken a step back and given myself like at least a day to have waited and taken a decision, which I did not. So yeah, we all learn.
Based on your experiences, though, what was the most unexpected lesson that empathy has taught you in your professional journey?
That's a difficult one. I'm sure it has happened.
Mm-hmm.
You say a difficult lesson, right? A lesson.
An unexpected lesson, something that you learned unexpectedly when you were either using empathy or someone else was empathetic.
Mm, yeah, so I faintly remember this instance where in my past to past organization, I was having a conversation, and um, actually it was with a client. Now I remember, it was with a client. It was not an inside conversation. And what I realized that it was more on the business side, but when we were having this conversation, uh, I started listening very effectively and starting to suggest few things which could improve that decision for the client, because there were certain things we needed to improve at our end. So I had no other choice but to also effectively listen and to also put myself in their shoe, because that he was a senior person in the business, and I exactly knew how it's going to impact him and his team. Um, he was very kind. He said, Ankur, don't worry about it. I'm going to take care of it. You tell me, how do we work forward? I still remember his words actually. He told me that he made me so relaxed. He said, told me, don't worry about it. I'm going to take care of it. It was primarily, now I remember the topic also, it was about a PR release, and it was sensitive in nature. But he calmed me down. He said, "Don't worry, Ankur. We are in this together. We are one team." And when he said one team, I thought that this is the best thing one can tell somebody. Like even in ourselves and inside organizations and in client agency relationships as well, when we have clients, I think if we are a one team concept, things become very easier to navigate.
Excellent. I love that. And as we wrap up, I want to ask if there's one key piece of advice that you could give to aspiring leaders about incorporating empathy into their leadership style, what would it be?
I would say it may sound cliched, but there are essentially two things. Avoid working in silos. I think the the C-suite needs to talk to each other more often. There's inherent problems in here, I think, in many industries, many organizations. Call it ego clashes, call it difference of opinion. It's okay to have difference of opinion, but it's important for C-suite to meet over coffee more often than they do. So be it primarily the CFOs and the chief, CCO and CDO and the CEO. These people need to meet more often, not only for taking business calls, but over coffee and having casual discussions and knowing each other better, because this is very important. Otherwise, everybody is in their different zones, and it becomes who suffers at the end of the day. It's the people who suffer at the end of the day because they are not aware of what's going on at the C-suite level, right? This is one. And the number two level is number two suggestion, maybe not an advice suggestion, is don't ask your group heads to talk to people. Like there are leaders I've seen, hey, come here, you should talk to your people. So I would say that leaders should, rather than doing only town halls, annual town halls, they should take up time and quarterly once, or if people are already doing it, it's good. But I've observed it's very rare. People should talk to everybody more often. When I say more often, at least once a quarter is good enough, if not every month. But it really helps the people to, as you mentioned about retention, building trust, empathy. These things are not visible. These things can only be felt, right, Cynthia? So I feel these are the two things I would want to leave with.
Ankoor, that is great advice, great insight. I can't thank you enough for sharing your philosophy and your thinking and your insights with our listeners today. If someone wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way? We will have your links to your Authority Magazine article. This video will be posted within that article. And in the show notes, we'll have links to all of that. But is there any way in particular that you prefer people reach out to you?
Absolutely. LinkedIn is good and Twitter is good. I'm active on both.
Okay.
My Twitter is ANKOORNOW, Ankoor Now, because I'm all about now. So I put now in my Twitter handle. I like staying in the present. So yeah.
I like that. Okay. Well, again, I thank you for your time. And to our listeners, I hope you enjoyed the insight that Ankoor has brought to us today. And as always, leaders who care to lead. Thank you. Thanks for watching the Care to Lead podcast. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more videos and updates.